Hi, everybody. Let's see. Why isn't this darn thing working? Oh, there we go. How are you all? Hey, Ellen. I'm just trying to get all this. It's at night. It's well, I guess if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast right now, it's dark. It's just dark all the time now, isn't it? Well, it's good to see you guys. You're all are hiding, but that's all right. Hi, Danielle. I can hear you. Oh, I think you're mute.
There, I was muted. I didn't realize it. I just finished my French lesson. Had to dip over here.
Good job. Wait a minute to see. It has been foggy and rainy here all day, so it's been dark like all day long. It's just depressing. So I hope you guys had some light today. Oh, there's Ellen.
We had some. Hello, Lisa, my Facebook friend.
Oh, and Elizabeth.
She and I are always liking each other's posts. Hello, Ellen.
You guys are so
It's our anniversary today.
Oh, happy anniversary. 11/11.
Yeah.
11/11. That's a good one to remember.
You made it easy on him.
She did.
So cute. Well, it's good to see you guys all here tonight. I just wanted to, I joked and said it was like those old, way back when, your parents would have people come over and bring the slides from their trip. We won't do that because we'd be here for about, I don't know, 3 years just seeing. I never even get through all my pictures for the next trip. So that's just kind of, I always say I'm going to go through them all, and I have this spreadsheet I make, and then I never get to it. So I never finish them. So I've just given up. But I wanted to share a couple things. So in case anybody is going in the next few months, there's some really cool exhibits to see. And if you could, of course, if you see the screen, you notice it's a picture of my very favorite place in the whole wide world. That I miss desperately, but I will be back there very soon. But I wanted to kind of go to share some of those things so you guys could see them. And if you aren't going to be able to see them, then you could get a little glimpse into a lot of these great shows that are going on. And then also some of the things that are changing, of course, in Paris with the COVID. There's always different things coming up. So I will give you updates on those things too, but there's not really that many. So it's not too bad. And then just ignore my piles and piles of books that keep arriving from Paris that I need to put away. Still waiting for one box. That decided to go to Martinique first. So it went on vacation to Martinique, and then now it got rerouted back to France, and now I'm waiting for it to come to me. But it's been I sent it a month ago. But
you with it, for the sun.
I know, it was like, okay, well, I guess it's the first box I sent too, and it's the only one I'm still waiting on. But it has, I think, some of my exhibit catalogs, because I was looking today and I was like, I can't find this one and that one. So, oh well. But the first one I wanted to share, and I know that Ellen had mentioned one day, she was like, you're going to share that, aren't you? Is this really awesome exhibit that is at the Louvre. And it is this one about Athens. So it's all about Paris and Athens. And let's see, how do I get... There we go. About their relationship. It was put together to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Greek Revolution. And it's absolutely stunning. It was supposed to have actually had happened last year, but luckily they were able to push it and move it some exhibits in Paris that were scheduled, they just ended up not doing them, or they were put together and then they went into lockdown. And so unfortunately, because these schedules are set years and years in advance, there was all these great things that none of us ever got to see. So sadly, but this one is really cool. I was in this exhibit and instantly was like, okay, now I'm obsessed with all this Greek art. Because I need one more thing to be obsessed with. But it was really fascinating. It basically goes back to, where you have this religious art that's, with all the gold and the red. It had different Greek artists like El Greco, who's probably one of the most famous that we know of. But these things are just gorgeous. I mean, these are on wood, which is really cool. So you could definitely see, very orthodox. You could definitely see, the cracking and everything on it. And it was just absolutely amazing. But the exhibit's done, it's really cool because it just kind of spans all sorts of art. This one, of course, I loved because it is my favorite Delacroix. I think this one was at the Delacroix exhibit a few years ago that the Louvre did, but this one is gorgeous because he did this all about, there was one period of the revolution in I'm going to say it more French, Missolonghi, which is not the name of it, I'm sure, in Greek, but it was this very decisive moment that all of these battles, and it was everything was turning at that time. And so a lot of artists had actually captured it on canvas. And so this is this gorgeous one by Delacroix. And I love how she just kind of has her hands out, and then you see like this blood down on the stone. But then of course I always look for their signatures, because there was a exhibit a few years ago at the Louvre that was really cool, and it was called The Advent of the Artist. And it was pretty cool because it was all about how the artists at first, they'd never signed anything because they were commissioned to do portraits. So a lot of the times, they were just making this portrait for this, rich family or whoever it was for. And so nobody cared who they were. Nobody cared about, who the artist was, because that wasn't that wasn't what they were out there for. And it was interesting about how everybody started adding their signatures and doing self-portraits and how that all came to be. It was really cool. So I always look, especially it's my favorite artist, I always look for their signatures and take pictures of them, because one of these days I'll write something and put it all together about it. It's one of those millions of things, but I love this one too. This was about the same massacre that happened. And this was by Ari Scheffer, which is, if you've been to the Musée de la Romantique, that was his studio. And he was around that same time. He was a romantic, but I just was dying when I saw this one. I thought it was just so amazing. It's just so sad too. But you can see it almost looked like, excuse me, it almost looked like there was so much cracking, but it was in these really weird spots. Like you could see there, it's almost like it was burnt. It almost looked kind of crackled. It was really interesting. Oh, Jenny, you didn't fall asleep yet. Good to see you. This one is really, I love this one too. I just kept staring at her. I went to this exhibit twice. I went on the day it opened, and then I went again first thing in the morning so I could go in there and get a bunch of pictures and videos without people in it. But I just thought this was so beautiful. It's this, it was a monument it wasn't on this tomb, but it was for a tomb of Marco Botskaros, and he was a Greek war hero. And I just think it's so beautiful and so sad because she's just sitting there, touching his name. But the other really cool thing about this exhibit is there was a little bit about Venus de Milo, or Milo as she's called. And I didn't even realize this because I've done research and we did a podcast episode about Venus, but I didn't even think about this. And of course this is true, but there were a ton of other things they found. It wasn't just Venus de Milo that was there. And Venus de Milo was found by and I think Ellen, didn't we go see Venus? I think we walked through there. No, it was just a farmer, and he was just out there looking for some stones for his property and unearthed this piece of her torso, her torso. And so then they came back, he went and told, some French guy at the, local taverna and said, hey, we just found this thing. If you want it, you could buy it. And that's the French guy was like, okay. And he was an explorer. And so that's kind of how France has the Venus de Milo. But they went back and, once they went back and found her, and then they found everything else. And they started doing a dig there, and they found all sorts of stuff. Like they found this really cool helmet. That's a plaster version. That's not the real one, is in her normal spot. But they found this head of a man. And this is the Hermès de Milo. So it wasn't just Venus. So maybe that was her boyfriend. But it was really interesting because there was all these other things they found there. So that was kind of cool. But that exhibit goes until in January. It goes to February 7th. So it's hopefully if anybody is going back there before then, I know people are going this spring, and I'll have a big list of stuff. They're just starting to announce. It used to be like the Louvre in some places would put out like 2 years in advance of exhibits. But I think with COVID right now, they're just slowly probably having to figure things out. So a lot of them aren't announcing, or say next year is going to have one about Gaudi, which is going to be pretty amazing. That's going to be really cool. Hi, Joelle. And so this is another exhibit at the Louvre. This one was really cool. And this had a bunch of things in it that, the Louvre is massive, as you know, and it's huge. And I have my things that I'm, obsessed with, the statues and the paintings and everything like that. And then there's parts of it that I do go through, but I don't spend as much time in it, just because I only have so much obsession I could hold at one time. So, but this exhibit was really cool. It also just opened, and this is called the Petite Gallery, and this is in the Richelieu wing, and it's really cool. They always do these exhibits that go for quite a long time. This one goes till the 4th of July, and they'll go for sometimes almost a year. And they're always kind of educational. So there's always like, if you're really going to learn something, I mean, most exhibits are, but the ones they do here are really cool. And so this was all about how, basically how France and how Europe discovered some of these things that they had never seen before. So this is a tray, and it was called the Ferdinand II tray. This is a tray, and it's done, those are all cameos. So they're all carved, little tiny carved members of the Habsburg dynasty. So they're members, so it's Austrian dynasty. And so each one of these is carved, and I'll go back to this big one. So you'll see it, let's see, oops, see if I could zoom in here. But you can see like there's one in the middle, and there's like this, it's just amazing. So, and this it was purchased originally by one of the Medici family, and then it ended up going to Austria, and then it's Austria. So guess who ended up getting her hands on it? Marie Antoinette. So this, for a while, Marie Antoinette had this, and then it went back to Austria. But I was trying to find more information about it to see, because of course I want to know who every single person in these cameos are, and I can't. I mean, I can't even find even one name. But it's really interesting because it all belonged, of course, anything that belonged to Marie Antoinette. And there's one more thing I'll show you that was hers. But just look at this. I mean, each one of these things is carved. And at the time, this was basically how they started to see, like, cameos were a huge thing. And one of the things in the Louvre, you'll find the crown of Charlemagne, and it has all these cameos in it. And I always wondered why cameos. And now I know, because this is a lot of these cameos, they're made from stones and shells and stuff. And that was basically the first time Europe and France saw any of this stuff. So it was all these exotic materials that were coming in that they had never seen before. which is really, really interesting. So the cameos, they were worth a lot. So that's why you see them in a lot of like the crowns and stuff, which is really cool. But look, I mean, those are just like, and there's tiny. I mean, this is not very big. So, I mean, they had some pretty good eyesight to do that stuff. So another really cool thing at the exhibit was about these exotic animals, because nobody, France didn't have rhinoceros, and they didn't have, you'll see a giraffe too. And so this was really cool. And this is Clara the rhino. And it was given to the Emperor of Poland. And Louis XV heard about this, and Louis XV saw her, and he wanted her, and he wanted to buy her. And they said, no, it was too expensive. He couldn't afford it. And so for 15 years, she was used, like, this is a little sculpture. She was used in this clock. This was a clock that Louis XV had. But she ended up getting used in all of these things, and people were like obsessed with this rhinoceros, Clara the rhinoceros, and she just is adorable. But it was really cool because you think about it, like they didn't, we didn't have, we have zoos now, we grew up, we know these animals, we know all this stuff. But back then it was just like, what is this weird creature? And so this is how a lot of people ended up finding out about this, because of art, because they didn't see Clara. It was really cool. And then they had the giraffe. There was a giraffe that ended up coming up and to Paris, and it was given to Louis XIV. And so Louis XIV, one of the first things he did at Versailles was put in a zoo. And right now there's an exhibit at Versailles that's all about Louis XIV and his animals. And so that goes until February. So I'm excited to go see that. But this one, this is just a little wax figurine of a giraffe, and it was done by Barry, who was huge with sculpting animals. He's the one that did those lions that are outside the Louvre, the ones that are the mirrored copies of each other. And he and Delacroix would go to the Jardin des Plantes, which is where the zoo is. It's the oldest zoo in Europe. And they would go there to watch the animals, and they would go and sketch them, and and then Barry would sculpt them, and Delacroix would also he would paint them in those beautiful paintings that he did. But this is really cool, and Barry kept this his whole life, and it was only ever done in wax. So there's no bronze sculpture of it. There's no anything else. It's just this one little guy, and he's just so cute. But they were just like, people have become obsessed with these animals because they have never seen anything like that. This was done by Théodore Chassereau. He saw the giraffe, and he was only 8 years old, and he did this sketch at 8 years old. And Théodore Chassereau, he is also fantastic. He first studied under Ingres, and then he ended up, he was very neoclassical. And then he went to Delacroix, and he loved Delacroix, and he was really inspired by his, the Oriental paintings that he did. But he died when he was just 37 years old, which is yet another artist that died when he was 37. But he was just 8 years old when he did this, which is just astounding. And then there's this there's Ostrich, which I love, because when Louis XIV first opened had his zoo, there was 200 ostriches that he had there. So ostriches were a huge thing at the time. But this guy is just so fantastic. It's always hard when they have these glass cases to try to get pictures without the reflection, or your reflection, or the reflection of people. This one is really cool too, this painting of the ostriches. But I'm sure they were just like, thought these were just the most fascinating things. So this little guy, this is what was on the poster for the exhibit. But this little guy, and I've seen him because I actually was going through photos, and I actually have taken a photo of this before when it's in the Louvre, normally in the Objet d'Art, which is in the Richelieu wing. But this little guy is so cool, and it is ivory and gold, and there's diamonds on it and silver. And it's German. And again, this was another thing that got into the hands of Marie Antoinette. But you could see the back of this he's called the Peddler. And it has this little gold case here on the back, and on the back of it, it has all of this. It's done in porcelain and is painted on there. And it's just like, I just was in awe of this thing. It's so cute. Let's see, I had another one that's closer, I think. Or from the front of him. I mean, he looks kind of like a grouchy guy, but but it's so cool. And then they would have in there, like they could actually put things inside of this. I mean, it's not very big. This thing is probably 3 inches tall, maybe. But it was really neat. The whole exhibit was really cool because it also had, it had this other, and I'll write about these and post a bunch of more stuff about each one of them and a bunch of the pieces they had, but it also had this huge triptych. So it was 3 paintings, or supposed to be paintings. That's kind of like a triptych is like what you have over an altar, and it was all done in feathers. And you wouldn't even know it unless you got really, really close. It was absolutely amazing. It was really cool. So, and this one, and I think, I hope Dawn and Carol are here, because I had to message them from here and tell them that I was thinking about them. So this was one I was so excited about. It opened at the end of October, and I went the day it opened. And this is at the Musée Marmottan Monet, which is a really amazing museum. It's out on the edge of Paris, so it's closer to the Bois de Boulogne. It's right on the edge. And it is, it actually holds the largest collection of Monet, even though it's Marmottan Monet, but Marmottan is who used to own it. But the Monet, this is where they have the actual Impression sunrise, which is what gave the name to the entire movement. But it's in a beautiful museum. It's small, it's not too big, so you could definitely go there, and do it in a couple hours. Well, I'm never one to gauge, because I go, it takes me like 5 times longer to do everything. But this is an exhibit about Julie Manet, and Julie Manet was the daughter of Berthe Morisot and Eugene Manet, who was Edward Manet, the famous Manet's brother. And Berthe Morisot was a painter in her own right. We've done a podcast episode about her, and she is just absolutely amazing. But she had this daughter, Julie, and her father died, and then her mother died a few years later. And she was left to be taken care of by her uncles. And those uncles were Renoir, Degas, Monet. And so she, these were just her uncles. To us, they're just some of the biggest names, of the time. And so she wrote a diary too, that she did, the diary of Julie Manet. And it's really amazing to read and just hear the stories. But she had a pretty cool life of her own. And her mother, this is a drawing her mother did. That's Berthe and Julie. And so she was a huge subject of all of her paintings. So we get to really see her grow up through Berthe Morisot's paintings. This is a painting of Julie by Renoir. And look at that little kitty cat. So just so cute. But this is Renoir did this. And there was tons of paintings here. This is one that Berthe did of Julie when she was a little bit older. But what was really cool is that later Julie ended up becoming an artist of her own. She didn't really do much outside of just a few portraits. This is a portrait she did of her son. But Julie did some of her own paintings as well, which is really cool to see. But she ended up later, she got married, and her husband had come from a very wealthy family. Her father-in-law was also a painter, and they ended up after her father-in-law died, they ended up auctioning off a bunch of his stuff. So her husband went to this auction and bought as much as she possibly could. And this was an exhibit that I was rounding each corner, and I was like, oh my God. I just was like, there was one thing after another that I was so excited to see. And when I saw this one, because of my love for Delacroix, I've never seen this before, and I'm really not sure what's going on with old Eugene's hair here. It's a little interesting. But this is a self-portrait that he did that I had never seen before. So I was super excited to see that. But he, this was, now it's in the Emile Bourg collection that's in Switzerland, which they did an exhibit of all of his collection a few years ago at the Musée Milo, but this was not part of it. And so I was really excited to see this one. And then I was really excited to see this one. This is Hubert Robert, who I love, who did a lot of architectural paintings, and he did a lot of the paintings of the Louvre. And so he did ones of, you might have seen before, where they reimagine like the destruction of, like if the Louvre was basically, it was just in ruins, and the paintings and the Apollo Belvedere is there and is kind of laying on its side. But this is one I had never seen before. And this is of the garden that's just right outside of the Denon wing when you're going across the Pont des Arts. So that little path right behind those trees is where I walk every day. But I was really excited to see this because I always love his stuff, and I always love it when it's of the Louvre, of course. But these paintings aren't very big. This was another one that was really, really cool. This is basically, was done for an exhibit of Manet's paintings that was at the Musée de l'Orangerie. And so I love this because you see Olympia in here and you see these other paintings. So Olympia, I love the painting Olympia. And when he did it, of course, it was so controversial that he freaked out all of Paris and the salon, and none of them were very happy. But it was really cool to see that too. Here's a little closer one of it. But it's very cool. It was the exhibit was in 1932, and there she is. This is another one. I don't know if you guys have maybe heard of Vivian Meyer before, but she was a photographer. She was just a nanny, but she loved to take photos. And so she would go all over in New York and Chicago. She was originally, her mother was French and her father was from Budapest. They did a really amazing and kind of sad documentary about her in 2013. So look it up. I will, tomorrow I'll have all of this. I'm going to put all these things with links and stuff on my website so you guys could click on them, and if you want to go to these things and remember them. But it was really amazing. She did all these really cool black and white photos. A lot of them with shadows. And then after this, I kept finding myself taking pictures of myself with the shadows. I was like, it's very Vivian Meyer. But she is some of these paintings, some of these photos that she did are just like absolutely astounding. And she just basically, she took all these photos. She died in 2009. In 2007, they found all of these, a lot of them were still just negatives that were in a storage unit, and she didn't pay for it. And so the storage unit ended up going up for auction. And the guy that bought them, he ended up discovering all of these. And I mean, there's some of the greatest photos you've seen. This one I thought was absolutely amazing. I stood there for like 5 minutes looking at it, and it was just so sad because her little eyes are, you see that she looks sad, and I just think her arms look like they look bigger than she should be. But it's just such a beautiful picture. I know, yes, doesn't Ellen, the watch and the arms, it just looks like it looks like it should be on a different body, but it's just so sad, and she's so dirty. You just wonder what her story is. But maybe she's at the fair and she's having some chocolate ice cream. But her little eyes, her eyes just draw you in. It just breaks my heart. But she did also come to Paris. And so I love this one because she took this up on Notre Dame. And so you can see our beloved spire that we've now lost, but we'll get back again. And then you can see in the distance that the first bridge you see there is the Pont de la Tournelle. And so that is Saint-Geneviève there, standing there at the end, kind of that little white spire you see against the trees. It's very sad. And then this was hilarious. I had to take pictures of these because this was in the gift shop. They had Crisco, they had tomato soup, they had marshmallow fluff that for some reason every French place thinks that Americans eat nothing but marshmallow fluff. And I don't know anybody that has marshmallow fluff. But I am going to, when I move there, I'm just going to take over cases of tomato soup and sell it on the corner, because isn't tomato soup like 50 cents a can here? And this is $7.90 a can. I don't know. I mean, I think homemade French tomato soup probably is way better than Campbell's tomato soup, but it was hilarious. It had Crisco, they had pumpkin pie filling. It was very weird. I don't know why. There really wasn't any explanation. It was, yeah. Oh, that's true, Danielle. But there wasn't like, this was in the gift shop at the Musée de Luxembourg. But there wasn't like she had paint. She didn't take photos of these things. I still have no idea why this was there. And there was just like 5 or 6 cans or 5 or 6 different things, just astronomically expensive. So, I mean, if they'd put peanut butter there, that's the thing that expats always want in Paris is peanut butter, because they don't have peanut butter there, or it's not like the peanut butter. It's kind of crazy. But this one, have you guys been out here yet? This is the Fondation Louis Vuitton. This is a really cool museum. The museum itself, the building itself from the outside is pretty cool looking. This one is out in the Bois de Boulogne. So you could go to the Marmottan Monet Monet, and then you go walk over here, which is what I did one time. And then when I told everybody I did that, they were like, you walk through there? Don't walk through there at night. But it was broad daylight. It was fine, but it was a little farther than I thought it was going to be. But this is this really amazing exhibit. This is a really cool collection that's never been seen in France before. The Fondation does some really neat exhibits. That's usually a lot of times they're collections of somebody else's. But this one was really cool. It's the Marzov Collection. They're these 2 Russian brothers. And I don't think I even shared any. There were so many things that I did in Paris that I saw that I still haven't shared. So I'm slowly going to get all those into my stories. But there was these amazing portraits, and these were done by Russian artists. This one, of course, is not. This is another one I love, Toulouse-Lautrec. I absolutely love anything that he does. And this is a really fun painting. Was it? Oh, Yvette Gilbert. So she was yet again one of his little showgirls. But this is actually, I was watching something on TV, and there was somebody had this on the TV. It was a French TV show in the background on their wall. This, of course, is a Picasso when he went through his whole Harlequin phase. And then this one, this is a Gauguin, and it is a still life. And it's, I love all the colors, but I'm a little concerned about it being the still life of parrots, because I think the parrots are very still. I don't think they're alive, but I also love how the tablecloth has like that crest on the side of it. It's kind of cool. But they had a whole bunch of Gauguin. They had Picasso, this was before. This was like, well, I think it was during Tahiti. But it was they had a bunch of Gauguin. And then this one I absolutely love. And who did this one? I don't even know if I wrote it. Oh, Albert Marquette, who I'm not really sure of, but of course, you know, I love this one because I see the Louvre in here, but I also see pretty much all my favorite things that you have down here in the corner. This is, so the corner of it, the bottom corner is the edge of and the end of Ile de la Cité. And so you have Henry IV there on his horse. So you could see how, I mean, now there's none of that on the left. This was done in 1906, so it gives you an idea of kind of what it looked like over there. But you see the Pont des Arts, and you see the Institut de France there on the left, and of course the Eiffel Tower. But on the right, you have the Louvre, and I love this one. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I love this painting, and I think I took about 12 different versions of that picture too, and zoomed in on Henry IV. And then this one, this was like, I have never seen this before. This is a Van Gogh painting, and it is like the most haunting and amazing thing. I think it's very different feeling from what Van Gogh usually painted. He painted this in 1890 when he was at the asylum in Saint-Remy, and he painted this while he was there. And it is pretty amazing because if you look at it, it's basically, I did a closer one of him. So this basically looks like Van Gogh. And so he painted this, you know, he was miserable. He didn't want to be there. You know, he was in the asylum. And so this is just such an amazing and interesting painting because it just is like, it almost looks like you're in prison. So I think, and that's definitely how he felt when he was there. But they had this in this room, and it was just, this was the only painting in the room. And they timed how many people, they counted and timed how many people were in the room. And the light, like it was very dramatically lit and everything, but it was really, really cool. And I just was like, I mean, it's just so haunting and kind of heartbreaking, to tell you the truth. I mean, you see him because you know how miserable he was. And then, you know, just a few months later, he would die. But it's just, it's pretty amazing. Oh, and then this exhibit, this is something that is at the Orsay right now. And it's about, it's the artist Signac, and he actually, it's his birthday today on November 11th. But you might know him because he's really into, he was really big into pointillism, which is all these little tiny dots, which some people either they like it or they don't. I think it's really cool. I always love to get really close to it because you could see each and every one of their like little strokes. And that's what I also love about Van Gogh. So you could always see, you could see how thick the paint is, you could see everything. But this one's really cool because you get to see all of these colors and you can see the movement and everything in it. So I just, of course, just wanted to share that. But this was basic. This isn't as much about him as a painter. This is him as a collector. And this is a really cool, this is a Cezanne. This is the first painting that he bought and collected. And it's a Cezanne, and it's the three pairs. You know, sometimes they really stretch naming paintings, but this is the three pairs, which is really neat. And I love the frame is just, you know, wood. It's not all fancy and gilded, which I love. And this one, this is an artist I hadn't really known of before, Henry Edmund Cross. And this, I was just like completely blown away by this because it almost looks like from far away, it almost looks like it could be a picture. It's just like so amazing. And then it's all, again, it's all of those little tiny dots. So when you get farther away from it, it just makes, you know, this painting, it just fills in all of the pieces. But when you look at it closer, you can see all of those little tiny things. And you've got to have some big time patience, I think, for that. But I think it's just so cool. That was like one of my favorite parts of the whole entire thing. But he did that of Signac. And then another one that's going on that closes just at the new year on the 2nd is the Picasso Rodin. And what's really cool about this one is it's part of it's at the Picasso and part of it's at the Rodin. And the parts, a lot of it, because the first thing is that Picasso first, he's later than Rodin, of course, but when he first came to Paris in 1901, he ended up going to an exhibit and seeing this exhibit of Rodin, because Rodin died in 1917. So, you know, they only slightly overlap, and you know, that was Picasso early on. But what's really cool how they did this exhibit is how they ended up putting, my favorite part was where they did something like this, where it's like there's a Picasso in the background and then a Rodin also in the image, and you see how much Rodin influenced Picasso and how the two pieces work together. This one's really cool. The Rodin is a sketch of a study of iris, and then the Picasso in the background is the swimmer. And it kind of reminds, it's just the period of the painting they used in Midnight in Paris of, you know, where it's supposed to be, Picasso is supposed to have done it of the beautiful, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name, but it's kind of that feeling of it, which is really cool. The other one, this was, I think, my favorite, this is, of course, The Kiss by Rodin. And then the one in the background is Picasso, and it's the kid. he named it the Kiss, which I thought this was the coolest thing. Is that I think of the both exhibits, this was my favorite part, this one. I just thought was really cool how they did that. They didn't do that with as many of the pieces. They did do Guernica of they did side by side, well on either side, because they had a tapestry of Guernica, and then on the back wall they had parts of the Gates of Hell, which I'll find those and share those too. But those were, I thought that was really cool. And then this is, I loved seeing this. So Picasso was always like sketching on stuff, but this is really cool because this is what he did this in like 1902. And he had gone to this exhibit and he saw Rodin. And so there's Rodin there. And it looks like this other little guy looks like Napoleon. But here Picasso did that and it's of Rodin. And I was like, oh, I thought that was just amazing. It's so cool. Yeah, Clint would be really cool. And then I think this is the last ones of the pictures I was going to share is at the Orangery, which used to, I don't think they do it anymore because I cannot find it online, but you used to be able to buy a ticket that was good for the Orangery and the Orsay because they are the same company. But I don't think they do that anymore. But the Orangery is an amazing museum. I just shared yesterday on my Instagram the whole story of how it kind of came together. Thank you, Ellen. I know I really love the color of the sky, but how the Orangery came together, and it's all based because of Monet and his amazing water lilies. But right now there is, and I put a video of this and I have it actually in here to show you, but right now they have this really cool piece and it's by David Hockney and it's called A Year in Normandy. And it is huge, as you can see from this photo. And he did this all during COVID, during the lockdown, and he did it on his iPad. And so here is, I have two little videos that you can see, and one, I was trying to do this as quickly as I could because I was the only one in there and I was trying to do it before anybody got here. But it's basically from his property in Normandy, and he painted this on his iPad and then they blew it up and then he added touches to it. But it's basically from his property for a whole year. So it was a whole year during lockdown and how the property changed. So you see all of the seasons, which is really cool. So it's like spring, and then of course we go to summer, and then but it's really cool. And so you see like some of the same trees, you see them at each different season. But it's, I mean, he did it on his iPad and then they blew it up. And then, but when you get close to it, you definitely see, like, you can see where there's some paint. But it's really interesting to see it all at once. And here's the other side. And then it goes summer. I love that little building. But there was a couple like the trees. There were certain trees I kept taking the pictures of, so you could see them at all different times. And I will write I'll write a whole thing about it and put it on my Instagram and my website. But it was just really neat, and to think that this is, it's going to be really interesting to see what artists come out of COVID with, especially the lockdown period. And it's really cool. This is here until what did I write down? Oh, it's here till Valentine's Day. And then you get to fall, and then everything's coming off. And then into winter. So it was really, really cool. It was really cool to see it and see it all kind of put together in one, when you look at it all together like that. And the Orangery just finished they just reopened earlier this summer after a big renovation that they redid their whole permanent collection down there. The permanent collection is really awesome. I shared some of the photos on my story last night, and they always do a really good job. They always do an amazing job with exhibits they have, and they have one right now that's Soutine that they also have going on. And so all of these things pretty much close in January or February. The one that's at the Fondation Louis Vuitton, it goes until July. So for Danielle and you guys going in the spring, you should definitely go out there to see it. I mean, if you have not been out to Louis Vuitton before, it's really cool because it overlooks the Bois de Boulogne and overlooks the forest, and it's really pretty. It's easy to get there too by the metro. You just go and you kind of walk a little ways to get in there, but it's a really cool. Other ones that are also going on during do I gonna get rid of my screen sharing thing? Other ones that are also going on is the Botticelli at the Jacquemart André, which is really amazing. It was so crowded when I got there, though. I ended up leaving because people were pushing and shoving, and they were like 75-year-old people pushing and shoving, which I was like, come on, I would think maybe you have a little bit more manners. But it was really difficult to get around. But it was what I did see was absolutely amazing. Also, the Carnivale, of course, is reopened. If you do go there, my advice is to make sure you book your tickets online. They're free, so it's really easy to do. But when you do it, book it for 2 different days, because the people working there are going on strike all the time. Like every couple weeks they go on strike. And so because I went there 3 times, took me 3 visits to finish the whole thing. And people were walking up and they didn't have tickets, and they said, okay, and they were letting them in. But I heard from somebody else that they went there and they didn't have a ticket, and the guy told them, sorry, too bad. So I would just make sure you book your tickets online, and then you don't want to get there and you don't want to get there and end up having it be closed on the day that you're going to go. That would just be absolutely, very sad. So, just make sure you get 2 in advance, and because they are free, it's not a big deal. The other one that's really cool is the Hotel de la Marine, which is opened on the Place de la Concorde, and it's absolutely stunning. Yeah, Ellen, definitely 2 days in the Carnivale at least. The Botticelli exhibit is going, Joelle, until January 24th. So the Jacquemart André always does really cool exhibits. The problem is if it's a popular one, because their exhibit space is tiny, the rooms are small, that is where it kind of gets to be difficult. And the Botticelli one, and I went kind of right when it opened. I went in the first couple weeks. So I'm hoping it will get a little bit better by the time I come back in December. But the Hotel de la Marine, you can, but you don't have to. There was quite a few people when I went that didn't have tickets, and they were letting them right in. I don't think a lot of people really know about it. It's probably not on the top list of tourist things to go see yet. It is gorgeous inside. I did a bunch of pictures and I saved it on my Instagram story. So there's a little tab that says Hotel Marine. But it is, if you don't have enough time to go out to Versailles, I tell people this is where they should go, because it gives you the feeling of Versailles. And they did an amazing job. And it's really cool because you have these GPS headsets that basically they work in each room. And so if you leave one room and go into the next room, it changes, and they'll tell you stories, because it started originally as the Mobilier, which is where they kept all of the furniture for like the palaces. And then it ended up turning into the Navy office. So that's why it's the de la Marine, which is Navy. And so they tell you these stories over time, and you get to go into these rooms, and they're beautifully done. It's really cool. But in the background, they'll be telling you these stories, but then you hear people like chatting, like it's just like background talking in the background of your headphones. And then you hear people walking, and it'll be like, it's like loud. And there was all the time I kept turning around thinking that people were coming up behind me. So you kind of, after like 2 rooms, you get used to it. But I basically stayed in each room until they were done talking, and then went to the next one. And I was probably there for about an hour and a half. And that was by listening to everything they said. So, it's kind of a quick thing you could do. you know, well, I say that's quick, but the best part is you go outside and you go over and you get to overlook the Place de la Concorde. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back there, especially in the winter, since it gets dark so early. I'm going to go back there at sunset, and I want to go out there so I could get outside at sunset and watch, and just see all the lights and everything. It'd be really cool. I do have pictures of the Museum of Architecture, and I will share all those. We should almost do one whole thing about that, because I wanted to do a video from there, and then I ended up running out of time, because what they have out there, and this is the Museum of Architecture that's out at the Trocadero, and it looks at, it's where the Trocadero is. You have two museums, one on either side. The Architecture Museum is one of my favorite places in all of Paris. Well, after the Louvre, but it's so cool. And right now they have all of the statues from the top of Notre Dame there, and they've all been restored. And what's interesting is they're all like the, you know, we know of those saints, the saints that were on the top as, or the apostles, the 12 apostles, I think is what they are. But we always have known them as this patinaed green, you know, what's the word? What am I thinking of? Bronze patina. And now they're all black because they cleaned them all and restored them. And that was the original colors. They were originally this color. So they are still there. They're supposed to be there until, I guess, they're going to be put back on the roof. But I'll do a whole thing. We'll do another one of these in like 2 weeks, and I could share all of those with you, because I wanted to go actually out there and do a video and then show you all of them. They also have a bunch of really cool stuff about the building of Notre Dame itself. They have really cool drawings that the Viollet-le-Duc did. They have drawings of like what the rooster was going to look like, what the spire was going to look like, and models and stuff. It's just absolutely amazing. So we'll do another one of these in a couple weeks, and I could share with you all of the stuff from that place. But it's really, really cool. Also out there, it's really great place to go. They have small models of like the Arc de Triomphe, and they have pieces that were originally on churches from all over France. It's the coolest place, and there's really nobody ever there. And it's usually I'm always there by myself, except for when I was there this time, and there was a family with 2 toddlers that were letting them run amok and bang on things, which was enjoyable. hitting the statues and stuff, and I was just cringing. But it's a really, really cool place. Ellen, did you go there? Have you guys been there? It's not usually something that's on people's list until they've been there quite a few times, but it's really, really cool. You get really amazing views of the Eiffel Tower from there too. And then the other place I went to this time that I just loved, and I should have had pictures for you, was a Musée des Arts Forains, and it's basically it's like the amusement park. And it is all like, it has old wooden, a lot of 18th and 19th century of carousels, which were really cool. And you get a ride on them. So if you remember in Midnight in Paris, they go to a party, and they filmed it here, and they filmed it. And I had to rewatch it after I went there that day. They have this one merry-go-round that's bikes, and it's propelled by the people riding them. So and that's what they did in the movie. They're on these old bikes where, you know, the bikes where it has the huge front wheel and the little tiny back wheel. You are riding on that bike. And when everybody's riding on them and everybody's on every bike, it's moving it, and it goes really, really, really fast once everybody's pedaling. But it was so fun. I was the only person there without children, which I was like, I should have like rented a child to brought my Sylvain's child with me or something. But it's a Musée des Arts Forains. And I'll put all of these links tomorrow. I'll put them all on my website with links on them so you guys could see, and I'll put the dates and stuff. It used to always be really difficult to find that you could only go there with a ticket. They're only open certain times. And when I was there, I looked, and they had like the whole month of September and October were wide open. And so I was really excited, and I got a ticket for it. I looked last night, and they only had a few days in November. And then it says that you could only book them a month out. So you have to look a month out because they do rent it out for private events all the time. And so they don't publish tickets in advance until a month out. But you know, they're doing something in December from Christmas until through the new year of a special. They'll be open every day and how you could come in like on the hour. But it was really cool. You actually get a ride on some of these, you know, you get to sit on these really old, you know, carousel horses, and it spins around, and it's a really, really cool place. I had so much fun when I went there that day. But you should definitely check it out. But I'll put all of these links and stuff on my website, ClaudineHemingway.com. It's right next to Bercy. So it's right there. You just right on the other side of it is where that little shopping part of Bercy. So it's where it is that's where they used to have the wine. So they used to have all of these buildings because that's what they were store the wine that was coming into the city, and they tax it. But it's really, really cool. You should definitely go and see it when you're there. But those are most of like all the really cool ones that are still going to be going on for a little bit. There was a million other ones that I saw that I'll share more of too. The other thing, is the big other difference now is if you are going to go to Paris here the next few months, and there's the health pass, which is really easy. I mean, it's really easy. It's now they've changed it. So you can't send your information in to get it online. They even took that website down that used to do that. Now you could get it done. There's over 200 specific pharmacies in Paris. You could go, and I'll put the link. If you go to Santé, SANTE.fr, you could find the list, but I'll also put the link on my website tomorrow. And you go in there and you could find, I mean, I looked in like, you know, in Odeon and areas I'm in, and there was like 7 places within like a 12 block radius that were doing it. You go in there, you take your passport and your CDC card. They will charge you 36 euros, but they will do that. They put it into the system. They give you a QR code, and then you could put it on the app, and the app, you could download the app. It's very easy. But if you're not able to go get that, and you end up like something happens, you can't find a pharmacy, your CDC card is just fine. You will have no problems anywhere you go showing your CDC card, at museums and at restaurants, any place. It's not a big deal at all. I had the QR code, but I was with lots of people, and I would see lots of people in restaurants and stuff just showing the CDC card. Half the time they just are like, oh yeah, like they don't even look at it. I was with somebody one day, and they literally were like reading every single thing and turning it over and looking at everything. But most of the time, once they see you kind of pull it out of your pocket, it's like, okay, yeah, you're fine. So, you know, there are people I see on the internet freaking out, thinking they're going to cancel their trip because they can't get the QR code. It's really not the end of the world. You're fine with your CDC card. You know, keep it with you, but also put a picture of it on your phone. Sometimes they're not super cool with that because it could be a picture of anybody's, but most of the time they don't even ask you for ID with your card. It's not that big of a deal. So, but that you do have to have one of the 2 of them. So that's really the only big thing. When you leave, you have to have take a test. It be a negative test within 3 days. If you're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, to go back to the US, I think they changed it to 1 day. But it's so easy to get the test. You could just get the antigen test, which is only 29 euros, and it's 29 euros anywhere you go. So the 36 euros to get your card, or to get your code, that's anywhere. So nobody should charge you more than that. You could just do the antigen test, which is faster and easier. It's 29 euros. I think it took me longer to walk to the place that was 3 blocks from my apartment to pay for it than it did for me to take the test and get the results. I had the whole thing done in like 5 minutes. So, and they literally are doing them on the street in tents. So you could get them all over the place. It's not hard to find. I know when they first put it into play, it was harder. It was a little more difficult, but all of these things they figure out over time. But it's yeah, Ellen, yours should be fine. They are going to make it so that after December 15th in France, and I don't know, I'm sure it's going to be the same for anybody visiting. If you're over 65, you will have to have had the 3rd dose. And so I don't know what that's going to mean, because I will get my 3rd dose before I go. And I don't know if I'm going to need to worry about that, because if I'm not required, then I'm not going to go get them to update my card at that time. But it just depends. But I don't think your code should still work, the one that you had before. And right now it's in place till July 2022, that they will be, that rule is still going to be in place, that everybody has to have the QR code to go into places. But there are already saying that there's some smaller parts of France that they might ease up on that. They haven't yet, but they said they might. AF allowed self-test. Yeah. So you could do that too. You could get the test, take it over with you that you could buy online, and you could do it that way. And the self-monitor test, they will take that too. Just check your airline, but all of them should be fine with the antigen test, or to do that one too. But it was so easy to do it at the pharmacy. It wasn't that big a deal either. So, but those are really the only 2 things. Other than that, it's not traveling over there is that's really the only time. And the only time you're going to have to show that you're vaccinated is when you leave, like when you go to check in. When you're in the States, they don't really ask you when you arrive. That could have changed, all these things could change, but they didn't when I got there, and I haven't heard other people say that they had to do that. But you never really know. But yeah, Danielle, yeah, it's just everything changes. They are saying, like in Germany, they had their highest rate yesterday of positive cases, but France, I don't think Germany and some of these other countries in Europe that are getting spikes, they don't have the vaccination rate as high as France does, because France is at like 86% or so for people that have had both vaccinations. So their vaccination is really high compared to a lot of places in Europe. So hopefully it doesn't get super bad. We're just gonna cross our fingers. So that was hopefully that's, yeah. I'm like, just get me on the plane. But hopefully that shouldn't change. The president went on TV the other day saying that they, urging people for the 3rd dose if they're over 65, and mask, they're not, letting down the masks in museums and stuff. And in France, people pretty much do it. I mean, if they're in the museums and they're in places, it's not like here in the US. They pretty much are just doing it. As Ellen said the other day, a lot of people, it's funny, and I do this too if I ever leave the house, but a lot of people are wearing, there you wear your mask on just slide it on your wrist. You put the 2 loops on your wrist, and everybody does that there. And I never noticed that here. And I do that all the time now too. So it's kind of funny, except for, I mean, now, it's getting cold and you're wearing big coats and stuff. You didn't do it as much at the end of October. But yeah, it is convenient. So, but that's really, those are really the only 2 differences, just the QR code and the test coming back. But they're both very easy to do. And so it's no reason not to go, get back over there. So, but yeah, did you guys have any questions about any of the stuff in Paris? Any of the fun stuff coming up?
I had a question, Claudine.
Yeah.
Actually, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, just to piggyback on the health pass.
Yeah.
On the newsletter you sent this week, you mentioned that you keep the image on your lock screen. How do you do that on your phone?
I could figure that out, and I'll figure out how I did that and then post it. But it's really easy, because then you have your phone, and then you just go that way, and then it's just right here. So it's just right here on your phone. So it's really easy, because a lot of times you get your phone, you're like trying to open it and try to find it. But it was
Mhm.
really great to just have it there on the lock screen. And it's, I think in the, I'll look it up how I did it and I'll post that.
Okay.
Because it's really easy. Or another thing is like, screenshot it and put in your favorite photos. And then that way, it's right there instead of like, I mean,
Searching for it, right?
I'll take 700 pictures in the Louvre in one day on my phone. I would stand there for hours trying to find the QR code. But it's really easy. Yeah.
And the second question, speaking of the Louvre, I don't know if this is the answer, but I'm kind of late to the party, so I'm just kind of catching up on all your podcasts and everything.
Oh,
And
thanks.
one of the topics I'm super interested in, fascinated, is the Medici's ladies.
Yeah.
And so you had mentioned about the gallery Medici, and for Marie de Medici. I was
Yeah.
wondering, where in Paris can you find paintings of Catherine? I know you can find them in Italy. I looked it up, I just Googled it, and I saw
Yeah.
there's plenty of mentions in Italy, but I was wondering if in Paris there were any mentions of her, or?
There's really not any paintings. I could think of a couple paintings in the Louvre. There's one of her and her son Henry III, and it was painted of his wedding inside the Louvre.
Okay.
That's one. I mean, she's in the painting, she's like this big. There's really, I'll look through my stuff and see what, I'm sure there's a couple other ones, but there's really not that many. I mean, there's mentions of her because you have, where she did the statue that's of the 3 caryatides that were originally had a gold urn that was holding up Henry II's heart. And that statue, that monument of the 3 caryatides is what inspired Richard Wallace to do the Wallace Fountains in Paris that we all love, because there's 4 in those, 4 women.
Okay.
And there's the initials that are all over the Louvre that has the H, and historians can't decide if it's 2 D's intertwined for Diane de Poitiers, his mistress, or it's 2 C's for Catherine. But so those are all over the place. And then of course there's the pieces of the Tuileries. So there's more things that mention her, but I'll have to, I don't think there's that many pieces of art of her. I mean, Marie de Medici, she had Rubens did the 24 paintings, the Medici cycle that I'm obsessed with. And I've done videos and stuff, and those were in my stories, and I didn't save them on my Instagram, but I need to go and do all that. But I'll put the videos up because I do a whole video of like talking about each one of the paintings. And those are about Marie de Medici, there's more paintings of her. Part of the problem is the Galerie d'Apollon, what we know as a Galerie d'Apollon was originally the Petite Gallery. So it led into the Grand Gallery. And that was one time filled with all these paintings of royalty. And there was a fire in there. And the only painting that survived was the one of Marie de Medici. So I'm sure there was a Catherine in there, but they were all destroyed because Marie came after. They were distant cousins, but Marie came after Catherine. And it gets confusing because Catherine was married to Henry II, and then Marie was married to Henry IV. So this is why they get mixed up all the time.
Right.
But I'll look and see what else I could find. But there's not that many. There's not that many of her.
Yeah, because when I Googled it, I found a ton of stuff on Marie, but not that much on Catherine. And Catherine just sounds so scandalous.
Oh yeah.
So I'm interested in both. So I was just wondering if there were any collections of for her. But
I wish. Yeah, she was quite the scandalous, poisoning people and things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, thank you guys so much for joining. And we're doing this Sunday, we have another live walk. We're going to start it a little earlier, 15 minutes early. So we'll start at 7:45 Pacific and 10:45 Eastern, because we're going to walk along the Seine on the right bank as the sun is setting. So let's cross our fingers that we have a good sunset that is not like cloudy and we don't see anything. But it's not supposed to be hopefully raining as of now. But we're going to do that. So it'll start 7:45 Pacific and 10:45 Eastern. Just so, because the sun sets at like 5:15 there. So they get a little bit more daylight than we do on the later side of the day. But we'll do that Sunday. And so that should hopefully be fun. And then we're also going to come in the next couple of weeks. We'll see some Christmas. So one day we'll do like the right bank, and another day we'll do the left bank. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff, and it's really fun because a lot of the stuff is coming back. So a lot of the Christmas, little villages that they would have in Saint-Germain and the Tuileries, those were, they haven't done those. They didn't do those last year or the year before. So it's kind of fun, or I guess it was just last year. It's kind of fun that all those things are going to come back. It feels like 2 years, doesn't it? So yeah, so that's kind of fun. And then I can't wait to get back and see those myself. But all the Christmas stuff is starting to go up. They light next week, I think it is, they turn the lights on the Champs-Élysées. So that's going to be kind of fun. So, but thank you guys all so much for joining. And I love being able to share more of these fun things in Paris. And if there's other things, you guys send me a message if there's things you wanted to see. And I will do something, Ellen, we'll do one of these again in a couple weeks, maybe right after Thanksgiving, where I'll share all the stuff that's in the architecture. Because I did want to go back there and make a video, but I just ran out of time. But I'm so excited. It was really cool. You'll never have an opportunity once they go back up onto the roof of Notre Dame to get this close to them. And like, you could just get right up, and I took 1,000 photos of them. But it's really, really neat to be able to see them that close, and all cleaned up and ready to go back on our beloved Notre Dame. So, but thank you guys so much for joining tonight. And hopefully my friend Jenny stayed awake long enough for this, but I just want to thank you guys all so much for joining, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.